Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would review this little video, and I think that I'm going to review a lot more fight hype reviews or fight hype videos in the future because there's just a lot of great videos on here. There's a lot of great information, a lot of good little short interviews that, in my view, are very nice to review. You know, certain fighters, you kind of get to pick their brain a little bit and see what they have to say on certain situations, you know, or just find out about certain situations or rumors within that of the boxing world. It's just kind of a good channel to look at. But I have of course not done as many videos on fight hype on my channel, you know. But anyways, this video I just thought was very particularly interesting. Of course, for those of you that know and watched, you know, boxing this year, you know that it's been a great year for that of boxing. We've had a lot of very big fights happen this year in boxing, all the way from Canelo Alvarez versus Jamel Charlo, Inoue versus Fulton, Lomachenko versus Haney, Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Tank Davis, Errol Spence Jr. versus Terrence Bud Crawford. You know, and the list goes on and on and on. And David Benavidez, of course, he already had his fight earlier this year, I believe. I think it was on March, somewhere around there. You know, versus that of Caleb Plant. Well, he's going to be fighting another great contender with that of Demetrius Andrade. Excuse me. And this fight, in my view, is great for a multitude of reasons. Reason number one is because both Andrade and, you know, Benavidez, both of them have been labeled as boogeymen in their divisions for a very long time. Of course, David Benavidez, he has a little bit of a problem getting some of the bigger fights until, as of recent, within that of the 168-pound weight division. Canelo Alvarez has fought other fighters. Of course, Canelo, his feet are pretty much being put up against the fire, you know, to face that of David Benavidez next. So we'll see if he ends up doing that. Jamal Charlo, excuse me, of course, called out David Benavidez just to pretty much show that he was never serious about that fight in the first place. And it took a while to get the Caleb Plant fight. And as for Demetrius Andrade, of course, he's had a little bit of a problem getting big fights within his weight divisions as well. Canelo Alvarez has never seemed too interested to fight him. Neither of the Charlo brothers, other than Jamel, have seemed, you know, too interested to fight him. But especially Jamal. Jamal never really seemed too interested to fight him. You know, he couldn't get the fight with Jaime Munguia and a certain amount of other fighters. So, in my view, this is pretty much the fight to make. It's very similar to that of the Terrence Bud Crawford and Sean Porter situation a couple of years back, when Sean Porter claimed that he wanted another shot at a belt, but no fighter wanted to fight him because he was too dangerous, he was too risky. And Terrence Bud Crawford claimed that none of the PBC fighters wanted to fight him and that they were all avoiding him. So that was pretty much the perfect fight to make. And this is pretty much the perfect fight to make. Not only is it exciting because a lot of people claim that both of these fighters are quote-unquote boogeymen and, you know, being avoided within their weight divisions. And we're going to be able to see how truthfully skillful they are. But on top of that, they have completely different styles. They're not really similar at all. Demetrius Andrade, in my view, he's going to be more of the craftsman in this fight, or more of the technician in this fight. He's going to more than likely try and be on the back foot and outbox that of David Benavidez. But the question will be, of course, is that will he be able to handle that of David Benavidez's size? Will he be able to handle the power? Will he be able to handle the speed? But more importantly, the size, because Demetrius Andrade, and not only that, but will he also be able to handle some of the talents of David Benavidez? Because Demetrius Andrade has never even fought a former champion before. And I've always said this about Demetrius Andrade, and I don't blame it completely on him. There has been certain fights that have not come to the wayside for him, but that's also partially his fault, you know, for re-signing with HBO a certain amount of the time, you know, and on top of that, you know, declining or not taking certain fights that maybe he could have in the past. But I give Andrade credit. You know, he has tried to get big fights in the past, and I give him a lot of credit for taking the David Benavidez fight. It's just going to be a very interesting fight because Andrade, in my view, is going to try to be the technician. He's going to try and be very careful moving in and out. Whereas David Benavidez, I think it's very clear that he's just going to try to beat Demetrius Andrade's ass. He's just going to try to go forward, and he's just going to really try to put the pain on him, and he's going to really try and knock him out. I just thought that this interview was very interesting. I might do another one where, you know, they showed Demetrius Andrade's side of things, but you know, this video more than likely is just going to include the David Benavidez side of things, and then maybe I'll review Demetrius Andrade another time, or who knows, maybe there'll be a part 2, depending how long the video is. But anyways, let's get straight into it. Let's see what Mr. David Benavidez has to say.
Yo creo que esta es la pelea que todo el mundo quiere mirar.
David, speaking of weight, man, how has the weight been in between the Plant fight and now?
Good, bro. always the same. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's good. I lose the weight.
I think there was like a clip. You had the afro grown out, and
I don't give a fuck about
kind of big.
bro. How do I look now? Do I look kind of big?
No.
Well,
Andrade is a tricky fighter. Who would you consider the trickiest?
I'll say this, and I'm not sure if David Benavidez was kind of sensitive about that, or maybe he's just annoyed that a certain amount of the people are saying that he's very big. But listen, David Benavidez can get annoyed about it. It's very clear that David Benavidez is even big for 168 pounds. David Benavidez, what he really is, and this is also another question that I'm going to have of Demetrius Andrade, because he even said in his last fight that it was a little bit difficult to adjust to 168. David Benavidez is not just a natural 168 pounder. He is a dude that could easily fight at the light heavyweight division. And not someone just like Canelo Alvarez who rehydrates kind of heavily for his size, you know. But David Benavidez is like a legit 6'2". Like David Benavidez is a legit 6'2", and if I had to guess, probably walks around anywhere from 205 to 210 pounds. So David Benavidez, you know, he's a decently big guy. And if I had to guess, his rehydration weight would not surprise me at all if he was rehydrating at 190 plus in that ring. So that might be a little bit tough for that Demetrius Andrade, but we'll see.
Fighter you've ever faced?
Probably Caleb Plant. I mean, and then probably the next one, Andrade. You know, I mean, this guy's a really good fighter. These guys are really quality fighters, and they have a lot of tricks in their bags, especially him being from the Olympics or being in the Olympics too. These guys are really talented. They have a lot of experience. So, but I've been thousands of sparrings. I've seen every single style in the sparring, so I know how to defend well from tricks.
There's a lot of criticism on the ring, but you're also a family man outside. You just proposed to, you know, to your fiance. You have another kid on the way. Just talk about that perspective, you know, being a family man.
I feel really level-headed, man, because at the end of the day, I could beat people up, and then I could go home and be a family man. So, you know what I mean? I'm just very excited. I really want to build an...
David Benavidez is the reason why a lot of people say that you don't play boxing. And that's why if you're not mentally right in the head like that of a Jamal Charlo or some of these other fighters that I see, like I was really questioning if Teofimo Lopez was mentally going to be ready for that Josh Taylor fight, although it seemed more likely that Josh Taylor was not mentally ready for that Teofimo Lopez fight because he really did not put on that great of a performance. But, you know, maybe it was just because Teo was that good. I don't know, maybe a little bit of both. But, you know, because you have fighters out there like David Benavidez, like a lot of people when they get into boxing, they don't realize that a lot of these fighters that they're trying to go in there and that they're trying to put as much pain on you as possible. Like a lot of these fighters, they were either formerly bullied or when it came down to, you know, they were in and out of the prison or, you know, juvenile hall systems. When it came down to it, you know, they did not come from great family backgrounds, you know, or they have dealt with some traumatic experiences. And as a result, they had to take out their mental issues or their anger, you know, or their anguish out on that other heavy bag. And then later on, they got into professional boxing. That's why boxing and fighting, man, it's nothing to play around with because a lot of these dudes, man, they're out there to possibly get a body on their record or to possibly kill you or at least put very bad pain on you. David Benavidez is what I would call a bully fighter, no doubt about it. He loves to put pain on people. There's no doubt about it. When he gets in that ring, he's trying to put you in the most amount of pain as possible. It puts a smile on his face. There are just certain fighters that are like that. Mike Tyson was one of those fighters. George Foreman was one of those fighters. Roberto Duran was somewhat one of those fighters. David Benavidez is also one of those fighters. Now, sometimes with bully fighters, at least if they tend to be a little bit one-dimensional, when someone starts to finally fight back and they don't have that fear, you know, of that alter ego, you know, of that fighter, or they don't have the fear of that type of style, a lot of the times, you know, their game plan kind of goes out the window because they don't have a multitude of game plans. And I'm going to be very interested if Demetrius Andrade, if his power is enough to put Benavidez back, if it's enough to kind of, you know, put that David Benavidez at least in somewhat of a more limited position. And if Demetrius Andrade is going to have more open opportunities to throw without being afraid of possibly getting knocked down or hurt, how David Benavidez is going to react, because he doesn't come across to me as a guy that has a great multitude of game plans. But I could be wrong, you know, because David Benavidez, he's a very talented athlete especially. But in terms of skill sets, you know, in terms of a skill set, he does have some holes. I don't think that he has the best feet. I don't think he has the best head movement. I don't think he has the best defense. You know, he can be knocked down. I think that he has a good chin. I don't think it's all-time great. You know, we'll see.
Empire, you know, my son, I see him doing the exact same things I was doing at his age. You know, that in boxing. So I want, I really want to accept.
Boxers and fighters especially are a lot like conquerors, especially like that's why Mike Tyson and a certain amount of these other boxers, they always reference guys like Alexander the Great or Hannibal Barca or Attila the Hun, because they truly believe that in a different time that's who they would be, that they'd be trying to conquer the world in terms of trying to be the greatest ruler of all time, or the most skilled conqueror of all time. That's what they think. That's what a lot of all-time great athletes think.
A good example for my people, for my family.
And for those of you that are very competitive, there's never enough conquering done. You want to basically do it forever. That's why, especially in boxing, it's so hard, especially because it's such a prideful sport. It's so hard to really get out of there once you start declining, because you never really want to give it up. That's why you have certain fighters like Manny Pacquiao, that they're fighting at the age of 43, and Bernard Hopkins fighting at the age of 50, and some of these other fighters. It's just very hard to give it up, especially, for athletes. It's just really hard for athletes to give up their particular profession after a while, too, because that's pretty much what, in their mind, they were bred and born to do, and then afterwards, once it's all over, their main purpose in life, at least that they feel, they believe that it's all over. Like Oscar De La Hoya, he was in an interview, I believe, one time, I don't remember with who it was, but someone asked him and they said how retirement was, and he said that it was miserable, because he said that my whole life was training, my whole life was eating a certain way, my whole life was fighting, and it was fighting, the next big fight, it was leading up to something, but now it's all over, and I just feel like my purpose in life is gone. That's why, it's also very important, I think, for a lot of these boxers maybe to get into training, or possibly find some other healthy way. But a lot of these boxers, they unfortunately get into drugs, or, they get into other addictions, unfortunately, because, their whole addiction was that of boxing. And once that's all over, they have to go into something else.
Brother, he's about to get a big fight. My little brother, Angel, he's starting to box too. And then I just want it to be a whole empire, a whole family.
And that's very good, because once David Benavidez retires, hopefully he can kind of train his son, or train other people, open up his own gym. That's a great thing, because you don't want to end up like Oscar De La Hoya or some of these other fighters. And, and I'm sure that De La Hoya does a certain amount of training, but I think Oscar misses a little bit of the limelight, or he at least misses the fighting game, and a lot of fighters do.
We've seen the power, we've seen the speed, we see the clips, man. How cool is that, just having him, being in the ring and being part of training camp?
It's dope, bro. It's really motivating to me. It gives me the motivation I need to keep going in there and working as hard as I can, because, I want to give my son everything, and I want to put him in the best positions possible for him to be successful as a man.
If he's watching this video,
thoughts on his resume, man. There's been criticism. You mentioned he's an Olympian. That's overlooked. Give me your thoughts on his resume.
He's a double world champion. He's been a world.
The guy said overall that, give me a thought on Demetrius Andrade's resume. I don't know what David Benavidez' thoughts on Demetrius Andrade's resume are. I'm guessing more than likely, and I'm not sure if the interview, I think that the interviewer was more than likely more talking about the opponents that he's fought, but maybe he did mean it the other way. If we're talking about Demetrius Andrade as a fighter, he is a very crafty fighter. I think that he's been a little bit overrated, by a lot of his fans, even though, of course, he is an Olympian and he's very highly experienced. But, once again, it's no offense against Andre, but, for avoided fighters, I've seen a lot of avoided fighters out there. They're usually at least able to get 1 or 2 big fights throughout their career. Demetrius Andrade is the only fighter out there that I've seen that he literally gets no big fights whatsoever. I mean, he's never even fought a former world champion. And I don't count regular or interim champions as world champions. And I'm not even sure if he's ever fought one of those. But I could be wrong. Like, there's no Jamal Charlo on his list. There's not even a Julian J. Rock Williams. There's no Jaime Munguias. There's none of those. And once again, I'm not blaming that all on him. But there were certain fights, in my view, that he possibly could have took, or maybe certain people that he could have went after earlier, that would have helped out his career. Unfortunately for Demetrius Andrade, he's going to end up probably as a what-if or a never-was, depending on who's going to look at it, because I do not predict him to beat David Benavidez, but we'll see.
Champion at 154 and 160. That's something that a lot of people don't do. So you cannot take no credit away from him. This guy is really good. That's why I'm preparing the way I'm preparing, because I'd rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. So
I certainly will agree with you there.
¿Les enseñas tu playera, David? ¿Qué significa? ¿Algún significado especial?
No, nomás mi cara y mi nombre ahí.
What do you feel like Andrade is better at than Plant? maybe vice versa too.
To be honest, bro, I don't know. They throw a lot of combinations. They throw punches and bunches. They move around a lot. So I don't know. I'm expecting a well-conditioned, well-boxed fighter.
Do you think he sits down?
And that may have been David Benavidez' way of saying, I don't think that Demetrius Andrade is any better than Caleb Plant. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's pretty much what I took from it. And I've always been saying this, that Demetrius Andrade, in my view, that he's really, and he might be a little bit better than Caleb Plant. He does some things at his best better than Caleb Plant, but I don't think that he does everything way better than Caleb Plant. I think that they're around the same level, just in my personal view. But Andrade, if we're talking about what he does better, I do think that he's probably a little bit better on the front foot, or that he has a little bit more courage. Of course, we're going to see how much courage he actually has against David Benavidez, because Demetrius Andrade has pretty much been fighting that, of tomato cans his whole entire career. It's no offense, but there's not been one fighter that he's been in the ring with that he couldn't handle. It just is what it is, or that anyone ever really thought was going to beat him, So it is what it is. But, it's going to be very interesting, to see what Andrade does that different than that of Caleb Plant. According to his fan base, he's a much better boxer. I don't believe that he's a much better boxer than Caleb Plant. I think that maybe you could debate that he's a better counterpuncher. I think maybe you can debate that he has more power for his weight classes. But I think that Demetrius Andrade heading into this division, and Andrade is a dude that probably could easily fight at 168 because he's not a small guy. He's a guy that is 6'2", with the 73-inch arm reach when it comes down to it. And he's a guy that probably rehydrates somewhere around, 180 if you really wanted to. So Andrade is not really going to be super duper small. Now, he is going to be smaller than Benavidez. So once again, it's going to be very interesting. But if I had to guess, more than likely what Andrade does a little bit better than Caleb Plant, I think that he, probably has, a little bit better of counter-punching ability, a little bit better on the front foot. We'll see. But I don't even know if Andrade is that great defensively, much better than Caleb Plant. Because Caleb, at times, he does not have the greatest of defenses. Sometimes he keeps his hands down for a little bit too long. He's not great up against the ropes. I would say that Andrade probably has a slight edge in that. But I'm not quite so sure. Because, once again, I've never seen Andrade against a real fighter.
Maybe he has more pop.
I'm sure he does. I mean, I don't know. I can't really say because I haven't until I fight him. They both had good amount of knockouts, so I can't really say until I get in there with him.
I know you touched on the knockout earlier.
It's going to be very interesting to see, once again, how courageous Demetrius Andrade is, because this is pretty much make or break for him. And I'm not sure if Andrade realizes that or not, but he needs to, because, dude, if you lose against David Benavidez, no one is going to fight you. No one is going to fight you, because that will be basically the golden ticket of Canelo, Jamal Charlo, all those guys saying there's no need to fight Demetrius Andrade. Not unless he gets very badly knocked out. So once again, we'll see.
But in the back of your mind, are you like, I gotta stop him, or I won't get the Canelo fight?
Oh, so I do want to stop him because I was upset that I didn't stop Plant, and that's really been bugging me. I watched the highlights and my man could fucking stop this guy. So I do want to get the knockout, but I'm saying I don't want to put pressure on myself. Sometimes when you put too much pressure on yourself, saying I want to get a knockout, it's too much pressure.
Did that happen in the Plant fight a little bit?
Maybe I could have got it though. That's what fucking pisses me off. That's what I'm saying. So I don't know. We're just we've been working on a lot of stuff, a lot of new things.
Thanks.
In my view, David Benavidez once again does not have complete A-grade power. He has probably A- level power. People try to act like he's like our Tibidi beef of the 168-pound weight division. That's not really what David Benavidez is. David Benavidez is a great, punches and bunches guy. He's a guy that hurts you over time. But once again, I'm going to be very interested to see what happens with him versus Canelo Alvarez or even Andrade. We'll see how that power translates. But if I had to guess, if I had to assume, just my personal view, more than likely, I would assume that David Benavidez is probably going to be able to handle Andrade's power. Because Andrade has good power, but I don't think it's ever been great. But we'll see. But anyways, this fight's going to be very interesting. But that's that's a very stern warning to that of Demetrius Andrade, that he is going to try to stop Andrade in that fight. So we'll see. Very interesting. Very interesting. But, I'm going to love this fight, no matter what way it turns out. It's going to be a great fight nonetheless. It's going to be a great fight. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. I just thought that I would review that very interesting interview for that of David Benavidez. I may add a second part onto this, but more than likely not. We'll see overall what ends up coming out of it. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.